The idea of having stories that we tell each other or photos that we take, videos that we take, and actually communicating our experiences is something that is as native to humanity as probably speech itself, which is where it all started. Rather than having dead records that live in your camera, you have living records that are able to be perpetually used for creating new and interactive and composable experiences. POAPs come into play when the record of the experience is what you're looking for, not so much a professional designation. And I think I see POAP playing a role in helping you, mark the things that you see yourself being a part of, or the things that other people see you being a part of, with tangible, durable pieces of information that can say you definitely were a part of this specific moment in this specific community that you contributed to in this specific way.
Hi everyone, it's Jordan from the NEWFORUM team, and today we're honored to have Isabel Gonzalez, co-founder of POAP, the reference in the space when it comes to digital memories. So if you want to learn more about POAP's vision and explore topics like digital identity, this is the right conversation. So welcome, Isabel, and let's start if you're ready.
Hey Jordan, how are you? Great to be here.
Awesome. So Isabel, you've described the POAP in the past as a mosaic of records. Can you briefly describe what is POAP? What is the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you're all familiar with the term. We call ourselves often an ecosystem for the preservation of memories. What we do at POAP is build infrastructure that allows us to mint memories as collectibles, and that way we can all remember what happened to us forever. For us, this has incredible implications for the future of trust, organizing, and the collective creation of human history. When you allow people to write the things that happened to humanity and what was important, actually, individually, not in a way that was handpicked by people writing history after the fact, we think incredible things can happen. And so that's kind of the system that we're trying to build. And of course, there's much more to it than that, but maybe I leave it there for now.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously a couple milestones, definitely 6.2 million POAPs minted, more than 26,000 issuers, 119 daily drops. How do you explain really such interest and success in the project?
So we've commonly said that POAP is one of the first crypto applications that does something that people in general, meaning not computer scientists, not financial people, not traders, but people in general fundamentally want to do, right? Which is preserve their memories. The idea of having stories that we tell each other, or photos that we take, videos that we take, and actually communicating our experiences is something that is as native to humanity as probably speech itself, which is where it all started. And so there's a little bit of a rule of thumb somewhere, I guess, I can't remember who had the quote, that says new technologies at least, need to be 10 times better to be adopted. And we think POAP is a way, like a 10 times better way of preserving memories, because of the way that blockchains can bring memories to life, right? Rather than having dead records that live in your camera, you have living records that are able to be perpetually used for creating new and interactive and composable experiences with applications that are also built in the same ecosystem. And so things can be very cool. So what makes POAPs better for preserving memories? Self-custody means you won't lose them. Provenance means you know who else was there. Interoperability means your experiences last forever. And so we kind of think that the adoption is largely credited with the fact that it is simply a better system. And for people that understand the implications of how the technology is developed and what you're able to do with the technology, it's something that can serve as a really powerful enabler for not just grassroots communities, but also for commercial enterprises, and also for just normal people living their lives. So it's been pretty cool. We noticed that people often use POAP today because they kind of understand that it delivers on a future where experiences of the past become your connection to the future, right? It's true across different contexts, and we wind up caring a lot about keeping the network's integrity. It's important to us that POAPs are issued for real people attending real events for things that really matter to them, right? Yeah. And so I guess that kind of wraps it up. Let me see if I dig into any of that.
No, perfect. Yeah, you mentioned it's very important, the memories of the past. When you look at the Web3 space in general, you don't have this simple approach that POAP has. Maybe that's one of the reasons of the success, is that it's very simple to use, it's entertaining, it's fun. Would you say that that's one of the main reasons, like on top of like building this ecosystem of memories, that is just a novel way to bring the past to life? One example I have in mind, totally out of Web3, is Midbeast recently, the famous YouTuber. He's saying that he likes to record videos in the past that he can even show in the future. And you can imagine that with POAPs, you could have that also in the future. Maybe even someone that doesn't exist anymore or is not alive could say, hey, I had these badges, or the family could say, hey, this person did this, and this could almost bring back the person to life in a certain way.
So in a certain way, that's kind of what happens. You wind up being able to explore like the things that happened to that one person you had a great conversation with at a conference. Even if you never talked again, you can see kind of how they've gone along on their Web3 journey and the things that have happened to them looking at their POAP collection, right? And it's kind of an interesting way of keeping connected to people that we've met that were somehow significant in our lives, even if it wasn't an ongoing connection. There's things like that. Then there's, what happens when you're able to attach rich media, for instance, to POAPs, where now you kind of have photographs that are categorized based on where you were and what was important at the time, rather than having, a random dump of photos in your albums folder and on your phone. So there's like a lot of things that wind up being pretty interesting. I think the idea of having something that's easy, fun, natural, friendly on the UX side is definitely something that's been huge for us. And I think it's a big part of what we've seen in adoption, although it's definitely far from everything. I think in the very early days, we had a lot of people seeking to use POAP as kind of like an easy NFT minter, right? Because all you need to do is fill out kind of a form, add some art, and boom, you've got an NFT. That's largely something that we've moved towards discouraging, because we do want to keep kind of the integrity of the form factor. You want to make sure that it's used for preserving memories, because that winds up setting the standard for how people understand the technology in the future. So it's something that we've largely kind of tried to steer people away from. That being said, the ease of use and pleasantness of the end user experience definitely is something that's pretty big.
And you obviously have like large organizations that are using POAP. So, Vogue, Adidas, obviously you're a reference in Web3 and crypto in general. So do you consider POAP a success in its current state for you and the team? And really what still needs to be done for it to be a real success to you? Or is it already a success? I mean, you can already be proud of what's been done.
I think it's kind of that's a complicated question, because on the one hand, I can say that I'm incredibly proud of everything that the team's accomplished. The adoption's brilliant. The response that we get from people when we find ourselves at conferences and you have people telling us, the impact that POAP has made on their enjoyment of their lives, that to me like warms my heart. And so in some ways, POAP is already a success. The way that we mark our target ultimately is global adoption, right? If you want to see an ecosystem for the preservation of memories, you want that to be accessible to the vast majority of the world, at least, not just the niche crypto population that we have today, not just enterprises. So we think that like enterprise adoption is something that we look at as being an excellent marker of the suitability of the platform today for the mainstream. Which is to say that if enterprises are willing to take POAP and put this in front of their users, who are largely, normal people that have fairly normal interests, that don't know much about anything self-custody, anything blockchains, anything NFTs, but they do have this shared desire to preserve their memories and remember things that were important to them. And so if enterprises are willing to put their brands behind POAP as the solution to do that, to us, that's like a really positive signal in terms of being the good solution for people to be able to do something they want to do. Now, obviously, there's still a long way to go in terms of getting the word out. And so that's something that we continue to work on.
Do you see, like, obviously the main focus is ecosystem of memories, but how do you see the evolution of POAP? Because obviously everyone or almost everyone knows about the project. You're starting to get mass adoption outside of crypto, that people are starting to be interested. So how do you see the evolution of POAP, not only just as a digital memory, but maybe when it comes to reputation? Obviously, one of the big topics in the Web3 space is verifiable credentials. How do you put trust on chain? So do you think that you can go above this digital memory and start like having reputation attached to badges or to POAPs? Because technically you went to an event, you got your POAP, so it shows that you were present at the event. So technically, it shows a little bit your reputation, because if you were at that event, there's a reason why you were there. What is your vision for going above this memory ecosystem, or is the main focus really memories?
So I think that the way we tend to look at reputation in Web3 particularly is like POAPs can be a very big part of what constitutes the reputation of a human being, right? In some sense, they act as a kind of almost a proof of work for your life. If what you do is who you are, your POAPs are a record of what you've done to date that makes you involved in the things that you're involved in some way. And, you know, the point that you made about did something to be at that event is an important one, by the way. And so I think on the one hand, we have some things coming out that ultimately allow people to add a little bit of customizability to the individual POAPs that are issued, so that in a series of 100, you can have some small amount of variation within that set, although it's still kind of the same token, right? I'm not going to say too much more about that because it's sort of a bit of an internal labs type project right now.
Fair enough.
But so I'm going to kind of pause myself on that end. But maybe to sum that up, like POAPs can be a big part of reputation. I don't think that they wind up constituting the whole thing, because there are some things along the lines of like unique contributions for individuals that are more of an individual contribution than they are a shared experience. And POAPs fundamentally are for creating memories of shared experiences that are how to say, like between people, right? It's for creating a network, not for identifying an individual as being a professional at something, let's say. So I think that there's much room for verifiable credentials and all of the other sort of form factors that exist in the system for doing certifications. POAPs come into play when the record of the experience is what you're looking for, not so much a professional designation.
You mentioned earlier that people are proud of having their POAPs. Do you see maybe something, I don't know, like related to augmented reality, where maybe with your badges, you would have a way to, you know, view them in a room or showcase them in a different way? Like, have you thought about like trying to go above already the state in which it is, but to really AR, VR down the line, of course, not necessarily in the coming months, right? But
yeah, so I think the folks at OVR, if I'm not mistaken, actually have like an AR POAP dispenser that you can place at in a particular like a geographical coordinates location, and you can open the camera on your phone, see that the digital asset is there through their app, and claim a POAP that is kind of a memory of you being in a particular place, right? Which again, like the technology is here, is just not evenly distributed. In terms of VR, I think having issuers do POAPs in Decentraland and the other virtual worlds that exist has been a thing. Now, you know, I think we're still a pretty long way from having VR that is convincing as a virtual world which will be like the future of human interaction. But we've been seeing it happen already. I think probably the better question to ask is first, what you actually define as like a VR, AR. Is token gating a real world experience considered AR, right? In my view, it is. And the folks at Token Proof have been using POAPs to token gate events. I guess at Basel, Miami, there's quite a lot of this. So yeah, I think it's like a little bit about your definition and how you're looking to incorporate POAPs into augmented real world experiences.
I mean, it's true. It is at this point kind of a debate, right? Nobody really knows where it's going. Virtual reality is in a way exclusive. It's very immersive, but it's not yet there, not in terms of technology, but in terms of adoption. However, augmented reality is huge already at gallery, at events. You can see it happening. You saw Pokemon Go a couple of years ago. Everyone went mad with it. So it's very exciting to imagine other prospects when it comes to POAPs, that they just use this technology even more, right? So is there a use case that you're particularly excited about that hasn't really been explored yet that much in terms of the technology, that you're seeing on a daily basis? You're like, oh, I wish people did that, or I want people to do that in the future?
Yeah, so I think it's not that it hasn't been explored at all, but one of the things that I've been excited to see, and I'm always excited to see when it comes across the feed, which is not often enough, is the idea of doing POAPs like retroactively for things that at the time you didn't realize, but in fact it turned out to be historic, right? I have this concept of history as something that is kind of ever evolving and ever developing. And oftentimes we don't realize that the significant things that happen on a day-to-day basis, you know, that this was the moment that sparked a sequence of events that wound up in being this big thing.
So when we think of memories, we usually think of the past, right? But when you're at an event today, tell me if I'm wrong, but the main use case today is like you're at an event and you get your POAP. So you're more in the present. And so topics of past and future are not explored as much as they could be, right? Because you're really linking all these three things together. So
yeah, so I think the way POAP is used these days definitely kind of creates an implicit association that the things that are happening in the present will wind up being historically relevant in the future, right? That's kind of the bet that most people make when they issue a POAP that they may not even realize that they're making. And I think for a lot of the use cases that we see, particularly commemorating things like conferences and people's product launches and such, it's a fairly reasonable bet to make. But there are definitely things in the past that people, I think, don't explore enough. The Rocket Pool community actually does a really, really good job of this, where they frequently use POAP to commemorate like historic moments for the community that actually have a solid meaning. Like I think I saw one earlier today that was celebrating the pump of the RPL token as a result of being listed on the Binance exchange, right? Okay. And it's like everyone who was in the Discord buzzing around that fact gets to claim the POAP. And so I think it's like things like that I wish communities were a little bit more creative about what constitutes an important moment for them. Because we frequently see things like, communities issuing POAPs for community calls, and that's all well and good. Not every community call is going to be historic. It's a different conversation, but there are definitely things that are like the root of warm memories that we like to think about. And that's where I think people find it very underexplored. Because, to be fair, it takes some effort.
Yeah, no, I mean, more than effort, I would almost say education, right? And this brings us like obviously to the new website of POAP. I think a lot of people want to explore and try new things, but in the Web3 space in general, they don't necessarily have this knowledge. And you usually start by the website or maybe a white paper in general. I have a friends, my father, they say, hey, I want to try a POAP. I want to have my badge. I want to do my gallery of photos. And he has no clue how it works, but he's excited to try it out, So when it comes to educating your community, obviously you have the new website. How do you stay engaged with the community? Obviously now it's pretty much global with the Web3 space. But how do you communicate outside of Twitter or Discord these new functionalities? How do you get them excited about exploring these new use cases that you mentioned, like in the past, right? A lot of people might not have this idea because it's not really out there unless you have a lot of users in your community that already are familiar with it. So how do you educate these new users?
It's an interesting question. I think our definition of community tends to go beyond like the classic just start a Discord, just start a Twitter, and really goes down to the individual relationships that make up that community, right? And so I think the answer to your question is, frankly, our approach to educating people about everything POAP, be it new use cases, new features that are in, call it late stage beta pre-launch, and all of that kind of thing, has actually always been a little bit of like a classic Satoshi. If you don't understand, we don't have time to tell you. But on the other hand, for people that are curious and that want to know, that have conversations with us, be it like finding people on the POAP team at a conference or in the DMs or wherever, we're usually more than happy to like talk about all of the different things that you can do and how to do the things and to overcome specific implementation challenges. We tend to make ourselves pretty accessible to people in the community that are trying to engage with what we're doing in good faith, right? And oftentimes our team will actually work with, be it creators, be it project founders, be it different application developers, many other ecosystem constituents. I think we call it an ecosystem because it really is like a biosphere, right? You have all of the different species that are intermingling with one another. We're often happy to work with people to develop the things that they are considering from idea down into like what the implementation and execution looks like. But it really is like a community approach of one-to-one relationships and direct connections.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, being curious and wanting to learn more, it reminded me of a quote from CZ at an event in Paris where he said, I don't try to teach piano to cows because you need, it is very brutal as a quote, but obviously it's the idea that I will explain the concept to you if you're interested, but if you're just here to criticize and you're not really interested, then what's the point, right, of taking
well, and it's not even that, right? I think for us, one of the things that we've definitely had to come to terms with at some point is that the implementation of POAP as a technology is, I think, as I said a little bit earlier, very analogous to like a free NFT minter, right? And a lot of people are really interested in using it for being a free NFT minter. And we take ourselves as a little bit more of something that is a public good that wants to create a certain specific future, which doesn't include POAP being used as a free NFT minter. And so if you want to learn how to use POAP as a free NFT minter, we're just not able to find a mutual understanding. If you want to use POAP for preserving memories that are important to you and the people around you, we can talk and we can kind of have a meaningful dialogue about that. But I think where things tend to get off the road is sometimes when you have like misaligned intentions or expectations.
And you touched on it upon earlier a little bit, like what about preserving reputation? Do you think that that's other projects in the space should take care of this area when it comes to reputation, badges, verifiable credentials on chain? Or do you think that POAP has a role to play? Well, first of all, you have all the data of everyone, but do you think you can go even beyond that and actually start having that reputation element? Because already people are proud of their, not a lot of their POAPs, right? The same way they're proud of their badges or their achievements. So there are a lot of similarities in that sense.
So I think there are a lot of similarities. I think definitely POAP should not be the prime player in creating like an on-chain reputation system. That's something that we feel pretty strongly about, that we're happy to work with whoever is doing good work in this space, but we're not really interested in being the ones developing that. What we want to focus on is preserving memories that are meaningful to people. I think when it comes to reputation, it depends a little bit on how you mean that and how you're defining the implementation. I know that there are kind of a number of teams that do anything from like proof of humanity to assigning a score to someone based on their history of on-chain activity, to helping people claim different airdrops they may be eligible for, and other things of various natures. So I think first of all, it depends a little bit on how you're imagining it. I think there are definitely certain elements of reputation that probably are a little bit community specific, right? My reputation within the POAP ecosystem is a different thing from my reputation within, say, the art community versus my reputation within whatever is like the decentralized science community, to the extent that I don't have one. And so like with the caveat that it is all pretty granular and pretty like nuanced in terms of how you're describing that, the role that I think we have to play there is attesting who was at the significant thing and helping mark the people that were important at certain moments in the history of that space, not so much in creating like a quantified representation of how important you are. I'm not even sure if that's like the right way to phrase that, right? Because what is an on-chain, what is a reputation system even really? Are you measuring importance? Are you measuring competence? Are you measuring something else? Right. So I think that it's all like very, very messy questions that frankly, I think I've yet to see addressed well.
No, absolutely. I think also the reasons why the questions in general in these topics are a bit messy is because we're still at an experimental stage where everyone's trying to figure out, for example, the concept of digital identity. Like, what does it really even mean? When it comes to POAP, like, how do you view this topic of digital identity? Is it reputation? Is it the memories of the past actually form your digital identity, how you relate to others? Is it something, or is it something different?
So I think the way I tend to look at it is as identity being, oh, first of all, I guess to classical definitions of identity, a lot of it has to do with, the way that I see myself, the way that you see me, the way that people in the different communities that I'm a part of see me. I think that I can't remember whose theory of identity is, but it's as this idea of like the picture of someone that is socially constructed based on the things that they believe themselves to be a part of. And I think I see POAP playing a role in helping you, how to say, like mark the things that you see yourself being a part of, or the things that other people see you being a part of, with tangible, durable pieces of information that can say like you definitely were a part of this specific moment in this specific community that you contributed to in this specific way, right? And it kind of helps you in some ways anchor your identity into history.
And so final question before we end the episode is really, what are your kind of guilty pleasures in the space? Obviously, we focus mainly on POAP, but on the side, what are you passionate about? What keeps you in the space? Community, NFTs, gaming. Do you have things that you're almost embarrassed to share with people in the team, and you're like, okay, actually, I'm a degen or something else? Like, what are you?
So like not exactly I'm a degen. I've been in crypto since like 2018, and so I have gone through a lot of the cycles of like everything DeFi, everything fairly early Bitcoin, Ethereum, whether it was 2018 or 2016, I can't even remember. Then the NFT summer thing was a whole thing. These days, there's kind of two things that I think are piquing the interest pretty significantly. The first is actually being a part of like the NFT art and especially the photography community. I've been a photography collector for a little while now. Probably I started collecting NFT photography in 2021. And have been doing that just pretty consistently, even writing about it sometimes. So that's like a little bit of a thing that
touching on this topic of photography, since
yeah.
you're talking about it, are you a photographer yourself? Like, why do you believe specifically in NFT photography compared to other types of NFTs? The reason I'm asking this is not necessarily for the audience, but maybe people that are outside of crypto. I'll take the example of my father, who is a photographer, and he's always asking me, I understand Web3 in general, but I don't understand the concept of an NFT photography. So what makes you so passionate? Is it because you already understand the technology as a whole? Like where do you see
No,
it?
so I think I kind of see it as a way for people to get ownership of art that otherwise they wouldn't necessarily get. Like photography has been, especially collecting photography, is typically something that's very restricted to like a niche group of people. This is something that is a big accessibility play that allows individuals to own photography in a way that they couldn't before, right? And we know from Instagram days that people tend to resonate with photos in a way that they don't resonate with certain other artworks, mostly because photos are like a slice of the human experience as represented by an artist, right? And so NFT photography, I think, is an interesting experiment just from the perspective of like increasing the accessibility of owning an artwork that an art form that people tend to like a lot. And so I think there is some potential there. But to be honest, I like photography. I like artists. I think if people saw art or had more art or learned to appreciate art, we would have an overall better and more empathetic world. There are some studies that show that in societies where artists and particularly like the call it entrepreneurs are closer, you tend to be better across all measures of wealth equality and everything else because the redistribution is a lot more efficient. And so I don't know, I think art can make a better world, and I like photography, so that's actually about it. I don't really have anything too much more complicated than that. And the second thing is actually being a little bit interested in the stuff that's going on with experiments in decentralized organizing of communities. So everything that's happening with Nouns DAO, Friends with Benefits, Boys Club, and like all of these other social DAO type experiments. It's interesting to see, well, they're DAOs or DAO-ish, right? Not all of them are even necessarily DAOs. Some of them are really group chats that are working on finding new ways of relating to one another as people. And that's another thing that I'm kind of interested in following along, just because understanding how people make connections with each other in the age of a more decentralized internet is something that is seemingly super interesting.
In terms of artists, actually, is there also when it comes to creators, fashion, do you see any use cases there related to Web3 NFTs and POAPs in general?
Absolutely. So I think the stuff that G Money did with 9DCC, I'm not sure how familiar you are, but maybe is one of the really good examples. So at some point throughout the year of 2020, 2021 leading into 2022, I guess he was using POAPs to build out the allow list for Admit One, and basically like rewarded everyone that he met throughout the year that he gave a POAP to with kind of early access to this mint that turned out to be a pretty big deal in terms of just capitalizing on G Money's profile in the space. And then the stuff that's happening with the iteration 1 and iteration 2 fashion lines, right? Where that he's kind of allowing people to give out "You've Met Me" POAPs at scale, and having POAPs be actually, interestingly to your point, almost like a token of reputation or influence within the 9DCC system. Right. So that's something that we're kind of seeing come out of it. And the experiment is really interesting to follow. G Money's been like a visionary and an innovator in the space, and we're very happy to see what he's managing to do with the technology.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, topics that we didn't address, something, that you would like to talk about? Could be anything, ChatGPT, mental health, taking a break, vacation, balancing this, anything that we didn't address.
So like I think Given the prompts towards the end there, maybe what I'd say is that within the space that we move, where everything goes so fast, work-life balance, work-life integration becomes very important. And finding time that you can spend with people you like in communities that you care about, that all believe in the same thing, that isn't necessarily tied to your work or really to outcomes that you are otherwise leveraged in, can be something that's super healthy. So to that end, I'd invite anyone to see what we're doing at POAP, come hang out in the Discord and see if you want to build a more connected world with us.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Isabel, for being part of today's episode. Obviously, links for Isabel as well as POAP will be in the description. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. On Twitter, it's NewForum_NCO. And yeah, take a moment if you like the content to share, like, or subscribe to our channel. And yeah, it's very appreciated. Have a great day. And thank you so much, Isabel.
Thanks so much, Jordan. Bye.